Stetboy, where do we have him?
Stetmann, his Statolites, they are a great way for mobility and sustain. So mobility to go after the propagators and sustain to deal with void rifts. With that being said, anything non-P1, it becomes a liability because propagators can eat Statolites. But the other aspect, it comes down to being smart about your Statolite spread. As I mentioned before, part and parcel has a lot of dead space, so you can spread your Statolites into those unpathable terrains, and props can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
And if you do it if you get lucky with it, you could get it into a point that prop will just keep on trying to go after your Statolite in a non-pathable space and just get hung up there. So yeah, P2, so much killing power. If once the far rifts start coming up, use your Super Gary zone, and then just zoom to there. Then once you get to the rift, start killing it, and then start dropping Statolites so that you have a place to teleport back to if you need it. And it also maintains vision. I have Stetmann from A to B.
A to B? Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, that's assuming you survived the first 5 minutes. How about you, Twotuuu? Where do you have him?
Stetmann is very bad against propagators. Like,
right?
if you're using so P2 is good against Rift because Super Gary can fly everywhere. But P2 is not so good against props because you gotta be if you're going after a far rift where your army is, where Gary is not, then you're in some trouble. Stetmann has two things versus props. One is Hydralisk, the other is Banelings, like the least work, least effort. So, and Hydras, you still need effort to manage,
down.
And Banes less, but Banes are not sustainable because you can't just use Banelings. You can't use Banelings forever. When 4 props come at a time, you won't have enough.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then for clearing rifts, also you need Zerglings to clear rifts. Like once you clear the close areas, you use hit squads of Lings. But then for far ones, you usually use Gary. If you're using P2, you can reach them. If you're not using P1, it's a lot more difficult. You have to fight your way from the front to get there. Yes. And sometimes if you're unlucky, you won't be able to do that.
Sometimes the poop spawns.
I think this is for most people, you should use P1. I rarely recommend P1, but because of props, I think you should use P1. But P1 sucks against rifts unless you're really good. So you don't lose your units. So I put Stetmann in D.
D. That's pretty far from A to B. What do you think, Evoling?
Yeah, I don't think he's D. I would at most go down to C for him, with those points stated. But still, yet having the Statolite zones for maneuverability, it helps ally a lot and also helps sustain a lot.
Have you ever tried soloing this with Stetboy? Because once Super Gary comes out, he's really strong, but I think it's an if, because you have to spend money to defend the first rifts, and that's gonna take away from how fast you can get Super Gary or even your hive out. And then you have the poop to take care of, for which you probably need Banelings. That's your best answer against the first poop. I guess if you can somehow micro it with Gary, that'll work. But
so to answer your question, no, I have not soloed this. I'm not a soloist, but I mean we're catering this tier list for essentially duos. This particular mutation, the difficulty increases exponentially on a solo aspect. So yeah, definitely if we're just only considering solo aspects, I can definitely see D or E for Stetmann. But with the benefits that increased speed and durability or health regen when you have another person to at least be a target. That increases your survivability quite a bit. So.
Okay, what do you think, Twotuuu?
So.
C okay for you?
I feel like see the hit squads or the ways you get rid of far rifts for the C commanders is pretty like they're really durable. They're really strong. For C, you have one Gary, probably not even super, because if you're not, I don't think you should use anything but P1, because if you're using like P2 and you don't know your satellite placement, or you forgot, or you missed by a pixel, you're gonna cause a poop train, or at least they're gonna grow. They're gonna like kill your satellite, and then you'll have an extra prop to deal with, and that's not gonna be good. If you're using P1 just to give satellite bonuses, then you're just like an extra commander passive, not that's kind of helping, but you're not actually doing, because his way of dealing with rifts is actually not that strong. And then you have the map, which is if you're using P1, you're not gonna deal as much damage to
a lot of
the attack waves.
A lot of Stet Boy's power is behind Super Gary, and if you're gonna use the first prestige, Super Gary's or regular Gary without the second prestige is just not that impressive compared to Super Duper Gary. And on top of that, the poops. Well, Zerglings are really good, but against poops, they just kind of make the problem worse. So I need to mix in Banelings and Hydras, which I think are really hard to make work. Especially, this is an underrated part. While I was playing this, an underrated part is that your expansion is in the middle of the map, and if you don't clear cleanly from one direction, sweeping clockwise or counterclockwise, you'll start to have poops coming from multiple directions. And it's kind of hard to split your army to fight rifts, and also poops coming from different angles. That's in the late game when Gary's supposed to be supposedly better, but I actually think that that's an underrated difficulty of this mutation that I don't think is something that regular Gary is strong enough to handle, because you need Super Gary to really handle one side of the map while also working hard on the other side. Here, you have to work on both sides because regular Gary is just not that strong as compared to Super Duper Gary. And on top of that, you also have to work on your other units that are killing the other rifts, even in the late game. This is even after we get over his already terrible early game. So I don't really see the case for C, but is there actually a case for C? Well, let us know, Eviling.
So P1, okay, so the cases for P2, you want Super Duper Gary. That is almost a given against Void Rifts.
Yes.
I mean, just to deal with the trickles.
Yes.
For dealing with Propagators, it's
very hard.
It's hard, but it becomes kind of like Zagara-ish play style. If you can secure the gas, especially at your expo, then you're gonna have a lot of. I mean, once Super Gary is out, he's known for like just on regular brutal, then he can pretty much just solo thing, just hero solo. So he can dedicate everything to gas, and you just start rolling Banelings to deal with, especially if you start having quite a bit of poops coming out. All your Zerglings, just as soon as they get recycled, morph them into Banelings. So you're not paying for the price of Zerglings. I mean, granted, you're going to be swimming in minerals regardless, but if you can just support the gas, then it becomes, okay, here's my Banelings that I need to defend the area, and then when I can start getting either Hydras or Lurkers to defend Exo and bases, then you start pushing out with Super Duper Gary and Banelings, roll the areas, and hopefully once you clear the area of any structures, then that becomes an area that propagators just can't come up anymore. Now, to deal with void risks, if you can have zerglings and you have the control to send them out to deal with it, then that's fine, as long as you keep them away from the propagators. If they're going to come near propagators, run them away, morph them into banelings, and deal with the propagator. Then after that, whatever gets recycled, keep on going after objective or void risks. It's a lot to control, but I mean, almost most other commanders have a lot to control to get past the early game. So, yeah,
it's like again, Rainer level of control groups.
Yeah, Rainer level control groups.
And Rainer's deep,
but stronger than Rainer. I mean, they're.
Oh yeah, if you're putting Stedalites like over cliffs only as P2, that's good. But then your Zerglings fighting rifts will not have the zones.
Yeah, they won't be in the zone. Oh, so one more thing to consider. We actually tested this earlier in an earlier tier list. We were debating whether Stet Boy's Banelings are worse, because we noticed that Zagar's Banelings are really effective against poops, but Stet Boy's Banelings somehow aren't. Like they work, but not as effective as Zagar's Baneling. I think we found out. Did we Twotuuu? We tested this and we found out that the Banelings of Zagar still do damage, plus the Splitters also do damage to the poop, helping to bring it down. Whereas Stet Boy's Banelings don't quite deal with it quite as well, because they also don't have that additional damage from the upgrade. You remember that?
I don't.
You don't remember?
I can't remember this.
It was a Mutator on Mal Warfare. I believe that was the fast cloak poops. We tested because we put Zagar on a really high tier, and Stetboy just can't match that tier because Zagar's Banelings are way better at dealing with poops.
Also free.
Yeah.
Yeah. So something to state about Stetmann's Banelings against poops. Don't get the leap upgrade. So if they start leaping, that actually puts them at risk to getting pooped. So it's kind of weird how that works.
Interesting.
So it's usually better not to get that upgrade, and then you'll get a little more out of them. That's why they seem underwhelming. Is just most people just get all the upgrades for the Banelings if they're going to go that route.
They don't get the leap upgrade. But you still have to pay for every single Baneling. Whereas Zagara, well, I guess it's a different commander, but what I'm saying is
different level of
Stet Boy's Banelings aren't the answer to poops that Zagara's Banelings are. So Stet Boy has to worry about poops. He has to worry about poops on top of the Void Rifts. Whereas the commanders in C can have idle defense against the poops.
Okay, that's fair. Even Rainer has idle defense against poops, so.
It's just the amount of attention, multitasking, and like risk involved in using him is just so much. Like it's just so high that I don't think it's.
I don't think it's worth the recommendation.
Really good, you're gonna be like not pulling your weight.
And one more thing, we can play Stet Boy just fine, but I think a lot of people still have a bit of stat lag because of how Zerglings interact with stat zones when they move in and out. So on top of the already hard time you're putting yourself through, you're also gonna make your ally potentially have a little more tough of a time if they don't have a good CPU. So there's
factor, but not.
I know. I'm just saying that it might help move the needle a little bit. You know, it might tip the scales.
Okay. I mean, if you want to throw that in, then okay, we'll put Stetmann at D.
All right.
Still better than Kerrigan, but
still better than Kerrigan. I mean, not a high bar, but sure, better than Kerrigan technically.